when you watch a crew build a house, they spend weeks, sometimes even months, doing nothing but pouring the foundation.
Right, yeah.
They test the soil, they lay out the rebar, they carefully cure the concrete. You would never just toss some cheap plywood on the dirt and hope the living room holds up to a storm.
Oh, absolutely not. Because if that foundation fails, the entire structure comes down.
Yeah.
It really doesn't matter how beautiful the roof is or, how nice the windows are. If the ground beneath it is giving way, the house is compromised.
Right. It's just structural common sense.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the literal foundation of our own bodies, the foundation of our daily independence, which is our feet, we effectively do the equivalent of tossing down plywood every single day.
We really do.
We ignore them, we squeeze them into unsupportive shoes, and we just, cross our fingers and hope they hold up under the pressure. So today we are taking a deep dive into why that has to change, specifically focusing on diabetic foot care.
Yeah, this is a crucial topic.
It is. And this is part one of a 4-part series where we're looking entirely at proactive protection and early detection. So if you are listening to this, you are here for those real thorough aha moments to protect yourself or a loved one without getting completely overwhelmed by medical jargon.
Exactly. And to guide this exploration, we're pulling insights directly from the clinical practice materials of Michael L. Ashley.
Awesome.
He operates a practice in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, specifically serving the best Southwest region, so places like Cedar Hill, DeSoto, Lancaster, and Duncanville. And he's a board-certified pedorthist with over 20 years of clinical expertise.
Okay, let's unpack this. I'm looking at his title, and I know what a podiatrist does, right?
Sure.
And I know what a physical therapist does. But what exactly is a pedorthist? It's not a term you hear every single day.
It's not, but it's a really crucial distinction. So a podiatrist is a medical doctor who can perform surgery, prescribe medications, and, diagnose diseases of the foot and ankle.
Yep.
But a board-certified pedorthist is an allied health professional. They are specifically trained in the assessment, design, manufacture, and modification of footwear and orthotic devices.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, their entire focus is on altering the mechanical function of the lower limbs to relieve pain or prevent damage. Basically, they engineer the environment around the foot to ensure it operates in perfect alignment.
Wow, okay. Which brings us to the core mission today, which is escaping what the sources call retail guesswork.
Yes.
Because we've all been there. You walk into a pharmacy or a big box store, and you are just faced with this massive wall of identical foam inserts.
The infamous retail wall.
Exactly. The
Yeah.
gel pads, the arch supports. And you're just staring at it, trying to guess if you need heel relief or metatarsal support. And you're basically picking a box based entirely on your shoe size. Relying on store-bought insoles for diabetic foot pain is basically like putting a piece of tape over your car's check engine light and just hoping the engine fixes itself.
That is a very accurate way to look at it.
But why is it that we are so quick to trust our mobility, something so incredibly vital, to off-the-shelf retail guessing rather than actual clinical assessments?
Well, what's fascinating here is how the human brain processes discomfort. When your foot hurts, your immediate biological imperative is simply to make the pain stop. Right?
Just fix the pain.
Exactly. And that retail wall is designed to sell you a product that offers temporary cushioning. But we have to understand, cushioning is not alignment.
Interesting.
A foam pad might mask the sharp pain of a pressure point for a few weeks by just softening the blow, but it doesn't change the mechanical forces that are causing the pressure in the first place.
And I imagine for someone managing diabetes, masking that problem isn't just a waste of $20, it's actively dangerous.
Oh, incredibly dangerous. You are ignoring the root cause.
Right. The sources detail a massive contrast between that retail experience and a true clinical environment. But I have to admit, I always thought clinical assessment meant just stepping on one of those generic pressure pads at the local pharmacy that tells you where you lean the most.
A lot of people think that.
Yeah. So what is a clinician actually looking for that a machine like that can't see?
Well, a static pressure pad just tells you how you stand still. But we don't just stand still, right? We walk. So a pedorthist conducts a comprehensive gait analysis.
Okay.
They are watching the kinetic chain in motion. So they're looking at how your heel strikes the ground, how your foot rolls forward, how your toes push off, and how that entire sequence affects your ankles, your knees, and even your hips. They are specifically looking for shear force.
Shear force, meaning like The friction.
Essentially, yes. Direct pressure is pushing straight down. Shear force is when the bones of your foot side back and forth against the skin and the shoe. Yeah, that friction is what causes calluses, blisters, and eventually, in a diabetic foot, severe ulcers. So a pedorthist identifies the root mechanical cause of that shear force.
I see.
And once they find it, they engineer a custom orthotic device specifically tailored to redistribute the weight evenly across the bottom of the foot. That takes the stress completely off the vulnerable areas.
That makes total sense. You're physically modifying how the foot interacts with gravity.
Yeah.
But honestly, when I hear terms like custom-engineered clinical orthotics, my mind immediately jumps to an absolute nightmare of insurance approvals.
Right, the red tape.
Yeah, the waiting rooms and getting passed around for referrals for months.
And that is a very common barrier that keeps people stuck at the retail wall. However, this particular pedorthic practice operates on a cash-based system with completely transparent pricing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. You don't need a referral from another doctor just to walk through the door. You bypass the traditional insurance maze entirely, meaning you get fast, expert care without all that administrative friction.
That's huge.
Yeah.
And they also note in the materials that these solutions may be HSA or FSA eligible.
Yes.
For anyone unfamiliar, an HSA is a health savings account and an FSA is a flexible spending account. Basically, these are accounts that let you set aside pre-tax money from your paycheck, specifically to pay for qualified out-of-pocket healthcare costs. So you can often use those pre-tax funds to invest in this kind of clinical foot protection.
Which is fantastic. It lowers the barrier to entry significantly. And establishing that clinical relationship is vital because, well, a pedorthist is focusing on long-term structural health.
Right.
But the clinician can only do so much during your appointment. The most critical part of this protective strategy actually happens at home, outside the clinic, which leads directly into the necessity of daily self-monitoring.
Yes, the source material puts a huge emphasis on this. They call it the Daily Footcare Checklist, and it's positioned as an absolutely vital tool for early detection.
It really is.
They are looking for the early warning signs of diabetic neuropathy and something called Charcot Foot. But before we look at the checklist itself, we need to understand the mechanics of the thread. How exactly does diabetes lead to neuropathy in the feet?
It all comes down to the vascular system. Consistently high blood sugar levels over time actually damage the walls of the tiny blood vessels, the capillaries, that supply oxygen and nutrients to your nerves.
Okay.
And without that blood flow, the nerves literally begin to die. Because the nerves in your toes and feet are the furthest away from your heart, they have the longest, most delicate supply lines.
That makes sense.
Consequently, they are usually the very first to suffer damage.
And the terrifying part is what that damage actually does to your perception of reality.
Oh.
It essentially just unplugs the warning system entirely.
Precisely. We naturally dislike pain, but pain is a crucial biological signal.
Right. It tells you something's wrong.
Exactly. It tells you to pull your hand away from a hot stove. It tells you to stop running when a muscle tears. When neuropathy sets in, it takes away that signal.
Here's where it gets really interesting. You're telling me a bone could literally break in someone's foot, or they could step on a nail and they wouldn't notice. How is that biologically possible? Wouldn't the swelling or the localized heat just give it away immediately?
You might see swelling, but you wouldn't feel the agony associated with it. And this is the terrifying reality of a condition called Charcot Foot.
Okay, what's that?
Charcot Foot is a severe complication of diabetic neuropathy where the bones, the joints, and the soft tissues in the foot essentially undergo a massive inflammatory cascade. The bones weaken and basically wash out, becoming extremely fragile.
So they become brittle, almost like a severe osteoporosis localized entirely in the foot.
Yes. They weaken to the point where they can microfracture or completely snap just from the routine stress of walking.
Oh my God.
But because the patient lacks the nerve function to feel the agonizing pain that should accompany walking on broken bones, they don't stop. They just continue to bear weight on it, going to the grocery store, walking the dog, doing chores.
That is a staggering thought, just walking around for weeks on fracturing bones.
And as they continue to bear weight, the entire architecture of the foot collapses. The arch drops downward, leading to what clinicians call a rocker bottom deformity.
A rocker bottom?
Yeah, the bottom of the foot literally bows out like the bottom of a rocking chair. This creates a massive, unnatural pressure point right in the middle of the foot, which is an area completely unequipped to bear the body's weight.
Wow.
And that leads to severe ulceration, infection, and very often amputation.
So if you can't feel the pain of a bone breaking, how does a pedorthist even treat it?
The Pedorthist's role is advanced stabilization, but it relies entirely on early detection. If a patient catches the early signs of Charcot,
Which are what, exactly?
usually it's swelling, redness, and the foot feeling noticeably warmer to the touch than the other foot. So if they catch that, a Pedorthist can intervene. They engineer specialized, rigid footwear and braces that offload the weight from the collapsing structures. That stabilizes the foot and prevents that rocker bottom deformity from ever happening. But, and this is key, they can only stabilize what they know about.
Which brings us right back to the Daily Footcare Checklist. It's a fundamental shift in how you have to operate your life. Your eyes and your hands literally have to take over the job that your nervous system used to do automatically.
That is exactly the mindset required. You aren't just, glancing down while you're in the shower.
Right.
A proper daily checklist means sitting down, using a mirror if necessary to see the very bottom of the foot, and actively looking for what your body is failing to tell you. You're looking for redness, feeling for areas that are unusually warm, checking between the toes for fungal infections, and looking for minor cuts or blisters.
Because if a seam in your sock causes a blister on Monday and you don't feel it, you just keep walking on it on Tuesday.
Exactly.
It opens up, gets infected by Wednesday, and because you still don't feel it, you are in an emergency room by Friday facing a massive systemic infection.
That cascade happens so much faster than most people realize. The daily visual inspection breaks that chain of events before it can escalate.
Okay, so let's say you've done your morning check. Your feet look good. You put on your custom clinical orthotics. You head out to work. You run your errands, and you are fully protected. But the source material makes a massive pivot here that I found completely fascinating.
Yeah, the at-home transition.
Yes, the protection cannot stop the moment you walk through your front door at 6 p.m. and take off your street shoes. They advocate for a strict, never barefoot protocol.
This raises an important question about how we view our living spaces. We naturally view our homes as safe havens, right?
Yeah, of course.
It's where we relax, where we let our guard down. But from a Pedorthic standpoint, a typical house is a high-risk obstacle course for a neuropathic foot.
It's like taking off your armor right before walking through a minefield. Walking barefoot with neuropathy is like driving a car with a broken suspension over a pothole-filled road in the pitch black.
That's a great way to put it.
You don't feel the damage being done to the tires or the frame until the axle just snaps. The living room is full of unseen hazards. You have table legs you can stub a toe on, dropped objects like a thumbtack or a stray piece of hard plastic, uneven thresholds between the kitchen tile and the living room carpet.
I think that's a brilliant analogy. If your nervous system is the suspension and it's gone, every minor bump is transferring damaging energy directly into the structure of the foot. And if a neuropathic foot steps on, say, a staple hidden in the carpet, the patient won't feel the puncture. They will just carry that staple around embedded in their foot for days.
That's terrifying. But people naturally want what they call end-of-day relief. They kick off their work shoes, and they either go barefoot or they slide into a pair of standard, fluffy retail slippers. What is the mechanical danger of just wearing a regular slipper from a department store?
Standard retail slippers are designed entirely for surface comfort and warmth. They offer absolutely zero structural integrity.
Not at all.
Mechanically, they allow excessive foot flexion. They don't support the arch, they don't lock the heel in place to prevent sheer force, and their soles are usually way too thin to protect against a puncture. If you wear custom orthotics, perfectly aligning your mechanics for 10 hours at work, and then you come home and let your arch completely collapse into a flat, unsupportive slipper for the remaining 6 hours you are awake, you are actively undoing your clinical progress.
So how do you bridge that gap? The source material mentions very specific indoor gear, starting with diabetic socks. For a long time, I just assumed a diabetic sock was just, a regular sock that just wasn't overly tight. What makes it an actual clinical tool?
It comes down to friction and moisture control. Normal socks have seams, typically right across the toes.
Yeah, that thick line of fabric.
Right. In a normal foot, if a seam rubs, you adjust your sock. In a neuropathic foot, that seam acts like a tiny saw blade rubbing back and forth all day, eventually causing a blister. Diabetic socks are entirely seamless to eliminate that friction. They are also non-binding, meaning they stay up without restricting arterial blood flow, and they are made from specialized moisture-wicking materials to keep the skin dry, which prevents fungal breakdown.
And you pair those socks with diabetic-safe indoor footwear. So the clinician can provide highly supportive slippers and sandals that give you that relaxed, end-of-day feeling, but they have rigid soles and deep heel cups to maintain the exact same precision alignment you had during the day.
It is entirely about continuity of care. The foot must never be structurally vulnerable, regardless of what room you are standing in.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The sources also mention advanced clinical items for severe cases, specifically something called the Diabetic Neuropathy Gauntlet. I have to be honest, that sounds like something a knight wears in a medieval fantasy movie. What actually is a neuropathy gauntlet?
The name certainly paints a vivid picture, doesn't it? A diabetic neuropathy gauntlet, which is often called an AFO or ankle-foot orthosis, is a highly specialized, custom-molded brace. Imagine a supportive shell made from lightweight plastics and lined with soft medical-grade leather or foam.
Okay.
It wraps entirely around the foot, encompasses the heel, and extends all the way up the calf.
Wait, so it's essentially bracing the entire lower structure of the leg. Why would someone need something that robust?
When neuropathy progresses to the point of severe instability, or if a patient has experienced partial amputations or a Charcot collapse like we talked about earlier, a standard shoe, even a custom one, just isn't enough.
I see.
The joints in the ankle and foot lose their ability to hold themselves together. The gauntlet mechanically locks those joints in a safe neutral position. It transfers the weight of the body away from the bottom of the foot and actually distributes it up the calf muscle.
That is incredible.
It prevents the foot from rolling inward or outward, completely eliminating the sheer forces that cause ulcers on a deformed foot.
So it's taking the mechanical load that the foot is failing to carry and transferring it to a part of the leg that can actually handle it.
Yes. It allows a patient with severe structural compromise to continue walking, to continue living their life, without further destroying the tissue.
So what does this all mean? If we look at the entire journey we've mapped out today, truly protecting diabetic feet requires a fundamental shift in how we view our bodies. First, it means ditching the retail guesswork. Stop staring at a wall of foam pads hoping for a miracle, and instead seek out a certified Pedorthist's clinical assessment, someone who can analyze your kinetic chain and build a custom solution based on mechanics, not just cushioning.
Second, it demands rigorous adherence to a daily foot care checklist. Your eyes and hands have to become your nervous system. You have to actively hunt for the silent, painless signs of neuropathy and the redness and heat that precede a Charcot foot collapse, catching them before the bone architecture washes out.
And finally, it requires adopting the never barefoot rule, utilizing seamless diabetic socks and highly supportive indoor slippers to ensure you are continually protected from the unseen hazards of your own living room.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you realize that none of this is just about feet or footwear. These are vital strategies for maintaining lifelong independence.
Absolutely.
Your mobility dictates your ability to work, to socialize, to go to the grocery store, to live life on your own terms. By implementing early detection and continuous mechanical protection, you aren't just preventing a blister or a fracture, you are actively preserving your freedom to move through the world.
It all cycles right back to that foundation analogy we started with. You would never let the foundation of your house warp, crack, and crumble before finally calling in an expert to stabilize it. You would fix the tiny cracks the moment you saw them. So I want to leave you with this final lingering thought to mull over. If our feet are the literal vehicles of our independence, why are we so conditioned to wait until they are physically collapsing to give them the same clinical attention we'd instinctively give to a minor toothache?
It's true. We will rush to a dentist for a tiny twinge in our jaw, but we will ignore the structural integrity of our mobility for years. It's definitely a mindset to reconsider the next time you take a step.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. This was just part one of our four-part series on diabetic foot care. We've poured the foundation today, exploring the shift from retail to clinical care and the absolute necessity of daily checks and continuous protection. But there is so much more to build on. We will see you back here for part two. Until then, keep a close eye on your foundation.